Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 1 of a Zoom Talk series brought to you by the UMRC. I'm your host, Rashay Valab, and with us today, we have Kamir Arjun. Mr. Kamir Arjun was a 3-time academic honors matriculant, LRC Chairman, Head of Academic Support, and the Deputy Head Boy of Westfield Boys High School. Like the yin and yang philosophy, life balance is an aspect that has been mastered by Mr. Arjun. He is a University of Stellenbosch graduate, achieving a Bachelor of Accounting Degree Cum Laude and a Bachelor of Accounting Honors Degree while on a 100% scholarship. A Golden Key member, high-performance mentor, and a top accounting achiever. A golden triage of a high-performance individual, if you're asking me. Kamir is involved in academic literature from digital mentorship to newsletter articles. Mr. Arjun is an accomplished athlete locally and nationally. He's a passionate swimmer, diver, lifeguard, martial artist, and marathon runner. The list of Kamir's accomplishments is never ending. I would like to warmly welcome Mr. Arjun to our talk series. You are our very first guest, and we would like to thank you for joining us this evening. So how are you doing this evening, especially with the disaster that happened last week?
Good evening, Rashay, and good evening to all the viewers. Thank you for having me on the show. In light of everything, I'm grateful for every day, every moment, and just taking each day as it comes.
Yeah, I like that. I like that very much. We always live in the moment. That's how we can enjoy it as much as we can. Okay, so how this interview is going to kind of work in terms of structure. So firstly, I'm going to ask you a little bit about your life. And secondly, we'll move on to, kind of the academic stuff, the sports stuff, the high performance kind of stuff. Okay. So one of the first questions, I think all these questions is essentially a collection of questions that a lot of people have messaged me personally and would like to ask you. So firstly, as a high performance individual with numerous accolades to your name, what was your upbringing like and how did that shape your life?
Good question. So when I was younger, I was enrolled in martial arts, and that formed the foundation of my childhood, thanks to my parents and their decision. I was taught martial arts from the age of 5, and during that whole time, in my formative years, I had the values of discipline, consistency, respect, etiquette, commitment, all drilled into me. And it was those very simple things that sort of compounded and made me the person that I have become, as well as, from within my own family values. I was always taught the value of your education, working hard, keeping your life simple, and just valuing memories and experiences in life, things that money can't buy. And once you find that, then you can actually find happiness and peace with yourself. And it's all those guiding philosophies that I have applied over many years of consistency that has gotten me to this point. So, I think that's the values and the core of what I was taught upbringing wise. But life without adversity doesn't lead to self-development as well. And when I was younger, my dad had a whole slew of health effects, from kidney failure to TB, going blind, blocked artery in his right leg, and he had pneumonia. There was a lot of other complications at the same time, coupled with the fact that I was in grade 5. I was looking after my younger brother, who was in the primary school with me at the same time, and it was the second time that my dad had kidney failure, because the first time was in 2000. When I was 3 years old and we came back from a trip in Europe. And during all this time, it was quite trying for our family, but we learned the value of and the importance of family and staying together and just not giving up, hoping and praying, as well as just doing the best we could with what we had to make things happen. And sure enough, after a while, my dad got discharged from hospital. And I was 12 years old at that time, and he was still partially blind at that point because of all the medications and complications. And I just remember being so happy we had overcome this, because during that time, when people were giving us lifts from school, I had to look after my brother. We were stranded 1 or 2 times, and I had to sort of take on this role at that young age of not only making sure I was okay, but looking after my brother, and then trying to look after my mom and making sure the house still, was functional. And much later on in life, when I was about 16 or 18, my dad told me that during all those times, there were many instances where he could have given up and died. But he kept on going. Through all the pain and suffering, he kept pushing on because he wanted to live another day, to see his wife and his two sons again. And I mean, that really had a powerful impact on me, because every time I go through something difficult in life, I use his words as a grounding principle. And I tell myself that I've got no excuse to ever feel like I need to give up on something, because if he could have gone through those extremes just to live to see us, then there's nothing on this earth that I cannot achieve if I put my mind to it.
Okay, I'm really sorry to hear about your dad. I am hoping that he is well at the moment, and a lot of us listening today can draw great inspiration from your story, and we really appreciate you sharing this with us, as it is a personal account. So I think I wanted to ask you, like, I understand, like, throughout your life, as you said, the foundation was laid initially when you were younger, and this molded the type of person that you are today. And speaking about your father with all his challenges and the challenges that you went through as a young individual, and how you overcame this through prayer, through believing yourself, and through taking the steering wheel. I mean, trying to keep the family together, keep everyone healthy, and I think everyone can learn from this. So I was wondering, what advice, if you had to go back in time, would you give to your 19-year-old self after you've studied? Now that you've studied.
After I've studied and I went back, there's many lessons I've learned over these years. And I would firstly tell myself to be more, to loosen up a bit, because at that point, I suppose I was always the hardest worker in the room. I mean, if I was always the hardest worker, I was always outlasting people at things. And I would say, and it's what I practice now, I would say, you don't have to work that hard. You can work a bit smarter and focus on enjoying the finer things in life, and enjoying, working towards more self-actualization instead of just trying to get to that point. So I would, if I was 19 again, I would impart all my wisdom of telling myself just to take a step back, look at every situation, and ask myself if the current path I'm on is the most effective and direct route to get there. Most often, we find one path and then we just go straight down at 200 kilometers an hour. But if we just, whatever situation we're in, whatever decisions we're faced with, if we just take a step back, look at your various alternatives and look at your circumstances and say, which one would be the best one for you to ensure overall well-being, and take that one, to make sure that your mind, body, and soul can go through it in a good space and being healthy and happy and at peace. That's what I would do.
I see. See, in the beginning, when you were speaking about being the hardest worker in the room, I was getting the sense of, David Goggins coming out there, but you know what I'm saying? I agree with you, taking a step back, improving your observational skills in terms of identifying, there are other paths to take, and these are available, as opposed to on impulse, just blindly going down one path without seeing all the other opportunities available. I think we'll get onto that a little bit later with regards to like opportunities and stuff, but yeah.
I mean, I just wanted to add on that point. The reason I say work smarter and not harder all the time is because I've been there and done that. I went through it working extremely hard. So I made the mistakes, I bumped my head, and then it took me some time to wisen up and say, okay, that option was painful, but if we can find an alternative to be a bit smarter, then you can do more things or enjoy a better quality of life. So that's the reason.
I totally agree with that. I 100% agree with that. And for the people that are listening here today and listening to you, and to those that are going to be listening to you in the future, we might upload this later, but let's just say someone would like to become part of this high performance category. So whether it be in the form of academics or whether it be in sports, what is the one piece of advice that you would give them as they are either starting their journey off or currently in their journey?
Okay, so I've spent many years, in fact, I've got about 12 years of experience working with high performers and as a high performer myself. And the number one thing that every single high performer has, whether they be an Olympian, whether they be a corporate CEO, whether they're an entrepreneur, or whatever field of study it is, they all seem to have passion. They all have an intense, burning desire and passion to want to do whatever they're doing, right? So fundamentally, before I give any, one tip or one characteristic they have, I just want to elaborate on that because they all are extremely passionate people and they've aligned themselves with their passions. So whatever they're doing doesn't feel like work. And because it doesn't feel like work, they are willing to spend as many hours as they want to perfect their craft, right? And the more time they practice something, the better they get. And because they're so inquisitive about whatever it is that they're passionate about, they're willing to dig deeper, ask more questions. And that leads to a process of developing expertise, right? And next thing, before you know it, they're at the top of their game. But to answer your question, I would say that you must keep your life simple. Every single high performer that I know has lived a simple life. They focus on the important things that are relevant to them, and they zoom in on it with laser focus. And the reason this is important is because we live in an age full of distraction. If you go out to a restaurant and you look around you, almost everyone is looking at their phone while waiting for food. People are not engaged in conversations. You look at people's attention spans, they've reduced. That's why you've got direct marketers now targeting social media platforms with short and sharp answers and short and sharp adverts, because they know that the consumer only has a few seconds before they lose interest. And this is because our attention is placed in so many different spaces. If you're at work, you've got your instant message in Skype, then you've got Zoom, then you've got your emails and someone's trying to call you, then you've got tasks, and then, you've got to interact with your colleagues, and then you've got other meetings. So we live in a world full of distraction where people become paralyzed by it. And we also become so focused on using apps and technology. I mean, not that tech's a bad thing, but we get to a point where we're so overwhelmed because we've made our lives overly complex, because we want to be more sophisticated and think we're more sophisticated. So we've added more complexity to our life. And in doing so, we've taken 3 steps backwards. Whereas all your high performers are extremely simple people. They have simple lifestyles. They choose the most direct route to get from point A to B. They remove all the middlemen and they focus solely on the tasks that count. And that is important. I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to learn to play soccer, right? What people will do nowadays, one, they'll watch a YouTube video, right? Then they'll sit on the couch and learn the rules of the game. Then they could watch a soccer match. And then maybe later on, they'll go out there and practice or play a game. But would you agree with me that the most direct route would be to scrap all the noise, just find a soccer ball, find some friends and start kicking the ball and practicing deliberately in that field, because then you're going to become better. And that's the thing that a lot of people miss these days. They get so caught up in all the distraction, all the noise, they forget the core principles and what needs to be done to give the most immediate change and provide the most direct result. So simplicity is the number one piece of advice I would give anyone wanting to become a high performer.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that, because in today's society, whenever you wanna learn a new skill or whenever you wanna do something, I understand that you were saying that technology is not bad, but it always seems to be the first thing that everyone goes to touch. The moment something happens, that's the first thing. And I 100% agree with what you were saying, and I think everyone that's listening today, would understand, because everyone observes around them, and to be honest with you, even especially in restaurants, I see this even with families, whether it be friends, and I do agree with you. I do agree with you on that point as well. And I think we will. I was going to ask you a follow-up question, so I think I'll get to that first. Like, I know you already touched on a little bit about social media. So I know we live in a technological era at the moment, and I just want to ask about your opinion on the effect that social media has had, like in your eyes, like the good and the bad.
Okay. So in my opinion, the good is that it's allowed people to access content or people that were previously inaccessible, right? For example, if you had an industry leader that you followed, in the medical journal, I assume most of you are medical students on this call.
Yes,
right?
Most of us are.
Then through the LinkedIn profile, you would be able to go and find that doctor if they have LinkedIn and connect with him. And if you'd like to network, you could send him a message and then get his details and have a call, right? Previously, without social media, there were many barriers to get to him. You'd have to phone his office. He may not be available, right? You'd have to go through those routes and then wait for an appointment. Now you can try and connect with the person and then get chatting, right? So that's the way I see it. Also, in terms of a marketing point of view, you're able to get your brand out there. Now, not just a product. Remember, everyone is their own brand. You market yourself every single day. So the way the world is working, a lot of people look to recruit people on LinkedIn. They look at your CV there. It's a point of reference. Whether you have a social media blog, you can then get your posts and content out. So people who want to add value have a place that there's very little barriers to entry and can allow for widespread and scale of their content, right? Whether you're in England or America or in South Africa, you can see the same post someone has made if it's on Instagram and they're following each other. So it allows for that easy communication. However, the drawbacks with a lot of things are that people are suffering a lot of mental health issues. And I seem to find that a lot of expectations are being placed on people because of social media. We're always comparing ourselves with the next person. And then in doing so, if person A has done more things than us, we then look at their profile and think, okay, what am I doing with my life now? And then start doubting yourself. So that can be a negative drawback, which you've seen can impact people on self-esteem and can affect the way they view themselves. So I think when you go onto social media, and this is my opinion, have a clear objective of why you're using the app or whatever app you're using, and make sure that you're comfortable that you follow through on that. For example, I just use LinkedIn, I use WhatsApp and Gmail. I've disabled Instagram. I had it a couple of years ago just to see what was happening, but there's nothing much happening on my accounts, and I've deleted it. So I choose my platforms that I use, and then I know why I'm using it. So for me, it makes sense. But I think people can, negatively get consumed in the social media bubble and spend a lot of time just scrolling through and wasting precious seconds of the day.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that, because a lot of the things on social media are actually false perceptions of many people's lives. It's not like really reality that someone can actually follow. And I agree with that. And I think you touched on a point speaking about self-esteem and mental health. So I do understand that a lot of students, especially medical students in particular, do suffer from anxiety, stress, and depression, especially in the type of environment that we are in, and the type of timetables that we follow. So what impact do you think participating in sporting activities, whether it be martial arts or whether it be running, would have on that?
So, I can speak from personal experience here, but I find, and you guys will know the science, when you exercise, you release endorphins and you just feel better about yourself. And I found that over time, firstly, when I was studying, I would go for a run, and I normally train twice a day. So whenever I was feeling a bit when I felt that I reached my mental capacity when it came to handling volume, I would normally just go for a 20-minute jog. And just being able to clear my mind and not focus on the books gave me more energy to then get back and apply myself towards my work, right? So it definitely helps provide that release, and a healthy release as well. Because when you're training, you're keeping your body sharp. I'm a big believer that for you to be a real high performer, you have to unify your mind, body, and soul towards your purpose and passion in life. And, if the body is not well, but your mind is sharp and your soul is sharp, then you will be limited. If your mind is not well and your body is sharp and your soul is sharp, you're going to be limited as well. And the same applies to your soul. You can have a strong body and strong mind, but if your soul is broken, you're going to lack the willpower. So that's the way I
Yeah,
see
I
it.
100% agree. I think a lot of people, as in a lot of these people that are in this meeting, are actually part of our running club, and I think a lot of them can speak from experience that once they've started engaging in this, it's actually helped their academics a lot. And it's great to see that you share the same opinion. And I think on that note, I just want to ask one more question. In terms of competitiveness, I'm asking your opinion here. Do you think that it is healthy or damaging? And why would you say so?
Good question. So it's a double-edged sword, that the question you asked. And I'll unpack both sides, right? So competitiveness is great. You need it because without it, there won't be progress, right? If two businesses are competing with each other, or industries compete, then what do you get? You get innovation, right? You get more products. You get better products, better functionality, better services. So there is a positive in terms of competitiveness, breeding innovation, which I'm all for. But simply put as well, the disadvantage of competitiveness, if not managed well, can lead to people burning out, placing too much pressure on themselves, and having a lot of other mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Because if you're competing with someone and you want to beat them, but you don't do it, and you're consistently losing, then you're going to have a negative self-image. And this can apply to any aspect of life, in fact. And the way I coped with it personally, and the reason I'm able to sustain such a high level of performance in my endeavors, is because I learned many years ago that I don't base my competitive instinct on a person, right? People have their good days and their bad days, right? You may just be performing well on a good day when your competitor, who you've spent your whole life analyzing, is having a bad day, or they could be having a brilliant day. So what I do is I focus on objectives. And you spoke about the academic honors being awarded to me 3 times in my matric year. The reason I was able to get the honors was because I wasn't competing with people. I had set an objective. And because I set an objective, I was competing with myself to bring out the best that I can be. And this is a point that most people miss in competition and in life, right? Life is a marathon. Life is not a sprint. But life, ideally, you should be journeying through life being a better person than you were the day before. When you're older, you should be a better person than you were when you were younger, right? Ideally. And because people don't try and be the best person and the best version of themselves that they can be, they lose the plot. They try and chase someone else. And then they lose the bigger picture of what the meaning of life is, and they're supposed to live their life fully. Whereas if you're chasing an objective and you set a goal, for example, like the runners here, you may want to run a 21K in under 2 hours. That is something objective that you can train towards and then realize. And once you've done it, you can be satisfied that you've made progress. If your time was a 2-hour, 10-minute half marathon, and then you go 1:57, you've made progress of which you can be proud. But if you go in with the mindset of that same marathon saying, or that half marathon, and you say, I want to beat person A who's next to you, and you ran at you were a 2:10er, you ran a 2 hour or a 1:59, but you lost to that other person, you're not going to feel good about yourself because your objective was to chase the other person. Whereas you had a fantastic run, if you look at the times, because you actually dropped your time by 11 minutes. So I've shifted my thinking from competing against people to an objective measure and making sure that whatever I do it better than I did the previous time. And if you think like that, it's a sustainable way to become a better person as well as maintain high performance.
Yeah. And also, I feel like a lot of people don't realize that it's not necessarily the opposition that is in their way. It's actually themselves that's holding them back from achieving a lot of these goals. And I like to thank you for sharing that, because that is a very important point that I think everyone can take away from this, that they can apply in their everyday lives. So now I would like to move on to something a bit more, a bit more quick, a bit more interesting. So I think we're going to be having a rapid fire with Kamir Arjun right now. Okay, so I'll just begin straight away. If you had to describe your life journey as a food item or dish, what would that be?
It would be a burger, because there's many different layers. In isolation, they've got the unique flavors, but once combined, then they just slot in well together and have a fantastic, amazing effect and taste.
Okay, so one checked off. If you were part of the animal kingdom, what animal would you be?
Honey badger.
And what characteristic do you share with this animal?
The reason for the honey badger is because a honey badger it's tiny, right? It's a small animal that's got the heart of a lion. Honey badgers have fought lions before to defend their territory. The honey badger is small and unassuming, so it can go through life without taking too much attention. Doesn't mean it's not, it doesn't mean business, because a honey badger is immune to the venom from your spitting cobra. They can survive in the harshest conditions. They have a swimming ability, so they can survive on different environments, as well as they've got an extremely thick coating of fur. So, I call it like my thick skin. You're able to go through life without taking things too personally. And so they're small, but they pack a massive punch. They know when to fight, and they know when to go after their goals, and they are relentless in their pursuit of it.
Okay, great. What is the one thing that people don't know about you that would surprise them?
I normally wake up at 3:30 or 4 a.m. each day. It's 3:30 on weekends, 4 a.m. in the week. So I normally get an earlier start on weekends.
Yeah, well, I think that's a goal that we can all aspire to at this moment in our lives. And if you ended up standing next to David Goggins in an elevator, name one question that you would ask him, or name one thing that you would just say to him.
I'd ask him if he'd like to join me and run across the Sahara Desert.
I think actually that's quite gruesome, but I think he will definitely agree to that. Name one venture or opportunity that you regret not pursuing.
I would say I regret not learning to swim at a younger age, and I think it would have made a lot of difference from a triathlon point of view now.
I see, so that will help build up the endurance in that sort of situations.
Well, just be faster. I'd just be much faster.
Right much now, faster, more conditioned.
I'm like an aerobic tank, but it gets a bit disheartening when you see some of the younger swimmers swim right past you.
I see. And if a biography in the form of a movie was to be made about you, what would the title be?
The title will be called Arjun, a story of resilience, dreaming big, and never giving up.
Great. Well said and quick. If you had to choose between the following items, what would you choose? Would you rather spend a day in space or be able to spend a day underwater?
A day underwater.
Yeah, in the ocean. Just, you just walking around. You definitely, I think.
I'm a watermelon. I'm a watermelon. Yeah.
I see. I think Elon Musk might disagree slightly with that point, but I think eventually he would warm up to that. So in terms of the world, would you rather have a world without deception or a world without hate?
I'd say a world without hate, because then hopefully you will find peace, right?
And it will not end up leading to deception. I see. I see the point
Yeah,
right there. Yeah. So it's interconnected. I see. And I just wanted to find out, do you know who Chris Bumstead is by any chance?
Isn't he that Canadian bodybuilder?
Yes, the Olympian. So the three-time Olympian. So I was wanted to ask, so if you were to wake up as the following people, what is the first thing that you would do? So let's say you wake up as Chris Bumstead tomorrow. What's the first thing that you would do?
I'd put on a pair of running shoes and see if the man has any cardio.
I see. And if you were to wake up as Cristiano Ronaldo tomorrow morning, what's the first thing that you would do?
As Ronaldo? Yes, I'd good question. I'd probably take one of his sports cars around and just take up some media attention for a day.
Yeah, just enjoy the attention. Yeah. Everyone knows who you are from every part of the world. Yeah.
Because I think no matter what you do as Cristiano Ronaldo, everyone's going to be there anyway. So may as well just go.
I agree with that. And if you could have dinner with one person in this world, whether they are dead or alive, who would that be?
I would say Mr. Leonardo da Vinci, because he was the first man to sort of, from my understanding, to actively investigate, the anatomy and with these detailed drawings of people, as well as his futuristic ideas. And I'd love to know how he had all those epiphanies, because he was hundreds of years ahead of his time, and I just want to know how he got on that train of thought. What was he doing that was different from everyone else at that time? How was he thinking, and why was he thinking like that? And the principles he lived by. I would be fascinated to hear that and hear his story.
Yeah, I actually, I think a lot of people, focus a lot on the people in the current times, and they forget about the pioneers in the past that led to the new discoveries in this world. And yeah, I think that was a great rapid fire. I think really enjoyable, some interesting questions and some interesting responses. So now I think we have about probably 7 minutes left. I think I will open the floor to any questions. You guys can just put it in the chat and I can read it out. But I think you've covered quite a bit, and I think you've covered everything from the kind of mindset one should run in this proverbial marathon that is life. The type of person you should be, how you should approach difficult situations, how to draw inspiration. And thank you for being an inspiration to a lot of the people that are here today and the future listeners. And I think we actually got quite a lot of value from our talker today. And I'd like to thank you very much for that. So I would like to open the floor to any more questions. You guys have any more questions, you can just put it in the chat. But I just want to know, what does the future hold for Mr. Arjun? What kind of skills are you trying to master soon, or maybe we can see it in the future?
So, I've always been fascinated with languages. So I would love to pick up a few more languages, and I'm trying to work on some Spanish, some French, German, just a few things. I would just love to immerse myself in different countries and just speak the language and just live amongst the people there. So that's sort of a personal goal. But from a business point of view, I released my book a couple of weeks ago, Study Smarter, a guide to improve test scores and more free time, with the whole purpose of helping everyone realize their full academic potential. So there's a huge disconnect and there's a huge gap between your high academic achievers and everyone else in South Africa. And there's an even bigger gap between the kids in the private schools and the kids in the township. And the point of this book was to bridge the gap so that anyone in the country can apply the principles learned from my 12 years of tutoring people and being a high performance coach, whether they were in school or varsity, because I've also tutored up to honors. And it's so that everyone, if they apply universal principles, should achieve their academic potential so they can improve themselves and make a better life for themselves and their families. So I'd like to get, my vision is to see that across every school in South Africa. And I'm also in the process of building a business accelerator to help connect high performers around our country.
Just before we close up, I just wanted to, because I see we have 1 minute left. I just wanted to ask, where can we get this book?
It's on Amazon at this point in time, and I'm busy in negotiations to have it on Take-A-Lot, as well as distributed through different bookstores in our country.
Okay. Mr. Arjun, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate you being here and being an inspiration to everyone that's here today and the future listeners.